What is happening, everybody? Welcome to Off the Rails, a recovery podcast dedicated to ending the stigma of addiction through open discussion on all things recovery related. My name is Mark, and with me today is Dave. And today we have a very special guest, and Dave's going to introduce her.
Yeah, we're real excited to have our next guest on here. She's 8 years sober. She co-hosts a podcast called Alcohol-isms with her dad. They discuss their shared experiences of being an alcoholic and a recovering alcoholic. And yeah, she's sharing her journey to help others. And I can say for myself that I've watched a couple of the episodes and a lot of great takeaways from them. So thank you very much. And please welcome Tara.
Hi.
Tara, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, I think just like to start, I just think y'all's whole podcast, the dynamic of it, y'all met in rehab. And I just think that's so cool. I really love what y'all have going on here. I think it's amazing.
Thank you so much. So Tara, most times we just get into it and we get our guests to share their stories. And we hope that through openly sharing stories, we can encourage people to get help and share stories of their own and kind of own their sobriety. So first off, you were just telling us you're originally from Texas.
Yes, I'm originally from Texas.
All right, let's get started with that.
Okay, so well, to start off, it's kind of funny. I'm not afraid to tell my story, but I found that I've had a lot of struggle in sharing my story because not that I'm the only person to get sober young. You had an episode, Jessica, what was her last name? She got sober when she was 18. And, it's not an uncommon thing to get sober so young, but I got sober when I was 21, in 2013. So I'm 30 now. And back then there really wasn't the social media, outpouring of support and help like there is now. And so I really struggled with sharing my story for many years because I was so young when I got sober. And so I feel like my whole experience is riddled with people telling me that there's no way that I could possibly be an alcoholic, or there's no way that, I could have drank that much or done that much damage to my body. And I was exaggerating and, I was making it up for I get you're seeking attention all the time. Bro, that's not a great way to get attention if you really want it. But to start off, I was born in Dallas. I am the oldest of two other siblings. Grew up with my mom, dad, all in one household. And then around the time I was 11, 12, 13, I think it was 13, they got divorced. And it was obviously every divorce is extremely traumatic and really hard, but my parents went hard in, trying to, they had a crazy custody battle. It involved every single one of our family members, neighbors, friends. So by the end of it, it's either team dad or team mom. And me and my dad always being so close, I was on team dad and my younger siblings were on team mom. So as soon as that happened, it was my household was divided. And even though I was living with my mom won custody, and I was living with my mom and my siblings, and I was on team dad. So that didn't really work out so well for me. So I was very isolated in the home. I didn't speak to anyone. They didn't speak to me. I was always to blame I got blamed for everything that went wrong. And, around that time, not that I knew that back then, but I started to really struggle with depression and anxiety. Had no idea what it was, but I just completely became reclusive and didn't care to have friends or didn't care to do anything. I did hang out with people on occasion, but friends really weren't my main thing. It really, I feel like I had always had a sense of self-loathing. It was I was born with this sense of complete hatred of myself. And I didn't really pick up on that until it was like team mom, team dad until I was blamed for everything. And then like once I was in trouble all the time, getting grounded all the time for no reason, I didn't have like, I wasn't able to function normally like a young adult, teenager, preteen should. It really started to reinforce in my head that I'm not worthy. There's something wrong with me. I am not okay. My family, is even reinforcing this to me. So there's obviously something really wrong with me. The first time I drank alcohol, that was my drug of choice. The first time me and alcohol came together, it was like, and I know a lot of people talk about this as if this like this spiritual thing where you come into contact with your drug of choice for the first time. That was like that for me. Like alcohol was everything I wanted to be. It was everything I needed to be. It was just everything. Like there's no other word. Alcohol was just everything I was lacking, everything that I needed. It was that for me. So the first time I drank, I was 13. Didn't really drink hardcore until I was like 16, 17. But during the time from 13 to 16, I had anorexia. I had to go to the hospital because of it. I was just like riddled with mental disorders and just a very general unwellness, as I put it. And I started drinking really heavily when I turned 17. I barely went to school anymore. My dad actually had to come to the school and like beg my teachers and counselors not to fail me or not to hold me back and to let me graduate. I ended up graduating early. And as soon, like the summer before I only did a half year for my senior year. The summer before my senior year, I drank and was on pills every single day. Like I thought, that this is a theme in my whole sobriety story. I thought I was just living the teenage life. That's what all teenagers do, right? We all go out and are we allowed to cuss on here?
Yeah.
Okay. we all go and get fucked up. And, it's part of in America, I would say it's a very American experience of, being a young person who's experimenting. And like, even in college, like you're promised this like binge drinking phase, so it's like, I was coming into being a young kid. That's what I thought it was. But what I didn't know is that very first time I drank like an alcoholic. Like I immediately got that pull sensation. Like it took over my whole body. And I thought that's what drinking was, but it turns out that's not what drinking is for normal people. So around 17, I graduated high school early. I got out a semester early and enrolled in a community college and, was planning on like getting the hell out of town. I didn't want to see any of those people, places, or things anymore. Like my senior year, like my first day of senior year, I had literally no friends. I literally ate lunch in a bathroom stall by myself. Like I was just so disconnected from everything, everyone. And because I had previously like shut myself in like a super codependent, super unhealthy relationship and missed out on my whole high school experience because of it. And so by the time senior year rolled around, I didn't know anyone, didn't have any friends. So then I ended up going to community college during the time that I was supposed to be doing my last part of my senior year of high school, and ended up getting into a relationship with someone who had lived down the street from me my whole life. And this person, like literally it's like it's like the guy who every parent warned you about. Like that's like, you're not allowed to hang out with him. Like, oh, you're hanging out with that guy. Like, oh no, not my kids. So I ended up hanging out with him because he had dropped out of school for a bunch of reasons. And he had actually been to rehab and he had gotten out of rehab, didn't go back to high school. So he ended up going to community college. So, we were both at community college at the same time. And, I thought, I don't have any friends. Like, we'll hang out. This guy seems pretty sad. There's a lot of bad stuff happening in his life. Like, we'll just hang out. We got into a really abusive, bad, terrible relationship for 2 years. And I drank that entire period. Like, I was not sober a single day. And, that was I don't remember a lot of it, but from what I do remember, it was just incredibly unwell. I went to rehab for the first time when I was 19, stayed sober for a couple months. And after learning that one of my roommates had passed away in a drinking related car accident, I relapsed at his funeral. Ironically, my friend dies because of drinking, and then I'm sober, and then I go and drink at his funeral. And then I just spiral out of control from then. And I just keep getting worse and worse and worse. Like, I was already really bad when I first went to rehab. By this time, like, I couldn't function anymore. And I wrote a suicide letter. I remember, like, I don't want to be triggering, but like, I wrote a suicide letter and attempted it, and, woke up the next morning, still good, still here, and continued to drink. But then around that time, my dad actually went to prison. And like, me and my dad are like best friends, right? Like, we're so close. We always have been. And so that was just like the most traumatic thing I've ever experienced. The day he went to prison was the day I actually moved in with my aunt and uncle. I like moved to like 3 hours away. So I was getting out of my hometown. I was getting away from all these people, places, and things that were terrible for me. And like, this was supposed to be, my starting over point. And like, in rehab, I had called myself an alcoholic, and in the AA meetings that I had gone to after, I had called myself an alcoholic and like knew that I was an alcoholic. But when I got to the town that I was living in, I was 20 years old. I was living in like a very, like, do you know what Texas A&M is? Like, College Station. So I was living in College Station, and I was surrounded by college kids. And so when I put myself in that situation, I was like, okay, I did go to rehab. I did call myself an alcoholic, but you know what? I'm young. Like, this is just a phase. Like, and I was able to convince myself that, it was just a party phase, and I was young and whatever. And, I had even had like people in my life, like family, friends at the time, say like, no, like, you're not an alcoholic. Like, you're just really young. This is just what young people do. It's totally fine, totally normal. And so from there, I started working at a bar, and then I got into another relationship with basically like the same kind of person. He was also on probation. Like, my other ex was on probation. He was on probation, and like, it was like the same person all over again. And drank and drank and drank. And I hit my 21st birthday. There's like gaps of time I don't remember. I became very mentally unhinged. I became very abusive towards everyone. Yeah. So I was just like completely unwell. And by the time, like, I turned 21 in April, and by the time summer had like fully rolled around, I was like actually mentally unhinged. Like, I was in the middle of a real psychotic break. I was like screaming at nothing and no one all hours of the day and night. Just like, I was blacked out. As soon as I woke up, like, I immediately went to the liquor store and bought a 30 pack. I think I was drinking like a 30 pack every night, or something around there. And I was just, and my intention was to drink myself to death, because I had a family member who I was extremely, extremely close to during that time, who was passing away of cancer. My dad was in prison. I couldn't stop drinking. And my life was just coming to this like crescendo in the most negative way. And there was no hope. Like, life was always going to be like this. Like, I was always going to be this way. I couldn't stop drinking, all the stuff that had been told to me when I was young, like, it was all true. I was a piece of shit. Like, I was like, look at who I am. Look at who I've become. Like, I was supposed to go to college. I was supposed to meet someone, get married. I was supposed to like live this very normal life. But here I am, 21, dropped out of basically high school, college, can't hold a job, don't have any friends again, and basically tried to take my life for the second time. Didn't work. So I woke up the next morning, started drinking, and I don't know, it's funny. I don't know what came over me, but I was just like, you know what? I want to try one more time. Like, I was like, life can't be like this. This can't be it for me. This cannot be it for me. So I got super drunk and called like 10 people in my phone, like family, friends, anyone who would pick up at the time. and told them like, if someone doesn't come here, I will not be here. Like within the next week, I need help. I can't stop drinking. I can't live. I can't do anything. So, I had family come over the next day, and I was moved out of the house that I was living in and moved back in with some family and enrolled in a rehab center. I was supposed to go to like an inpatient rehab center, but again, like someone I was really close to was in hospice, and I didn't want to be away while they passed away and like while that whole thing was happening, because it was like very imminent at the time. So I ended up going to an outpatient program for like 4 to 6 weeks. They kept me. I actually have my papers. I found them a while ago, and they wouldn't release me because I was being very difficult, very, resistant to treatment. And I had a very high relapse percentage. Like they rated me as someone who would like probably go out and relapse just because of how like unwell I was while I was in treatment. And proved them wrong, ended up going all the way. And I'm 8 years sober now and have basically lived my whole 20s without a drop of alcohol. So yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
It was an amazing job. Yeah, you killed that.
Thank you.
I have several questions.
Oh, goody.
But
goody,
I was
goody.
not jumping in. You did such a great job. So you mentioned that like negative self-talk. And how are you able to like kind of come over that and I guess like start talking to yourself in a more positive manner?
So, that's there's not a simple answer to that question, I would say that, it started after I got sober, and I knew, like I was 21 at the time, and I knew that if I wanted to continue to live, because like I knew if I drank again, like I would die. Like, and I still believe that to this day. Like I will go right back there.
Yeah.
When I first got sober, I realized like if someone lives to 100, like people usually say, "Oh, you live to 100." If I'm supposed to live to 100, I have 80 years that I'm supposed to be on this planet, and I can either, wallow and not wallow, but like just be absorbed in all of this terrible stigma that I'm living in and that other people have put on me. Like I can either live in all of that, or I can own it and accept it and just like be who I am. And who I am, even though everyone's telling me I'm not, is Tara, an alcoholic at 21 years old. And I have been, my whole life. But I just didn't know until I started drinking. So what I did is I actually wrote out, it kind of started in rehab. They would tell us to do like journal entries and whatever. And so when I got out of rehab, I started writing like who I was and what I had done, all of the things that I perceived as shortcomings, all of, everything about myself, everything I had done, every terrible deed that I had done, everything that I had said, everyone that I had hurt. Like I literally wrote it all out, and it turned into a memoir, which I have in a drawer somewhere. I haven't done anything with it yet. But I just ended up writing everything about myself that I thought was bad and terrible. And that was the starting point. So I had this thing, and it was really cathartic to like get it out. And so it was no longer in me. It was something that I had like put out into the world, and like, this is who I am. This is me. And through a lot of therapy, through a lot of, self-discovery, through a lot of, work, so much work, I have come to accept who I am as a human being. And I have learned that like, I am nothing to be ashamed about. Neither is anyone else on this planet. Like there's 7 billion of us, and we're all kind of taught from a very young age to conform and to be a certain way and to look a certain way and to do certain things with life and go on a certain path. And I realized that conformity was killing me. Like I don't enjoy what the average, life looks like. So, I basically had to like learn to break away and to really follow my own path. And like, again, through so much self-discovery, I have like basically curated and I guess created a life where I am truly happy and where I truly thrive. And that doesn't come without a lot of sacrifice because, you know, sometimes you hurt people you love, or like, it's like, you know, people have expectations, family has expectations, but, you know, for me, I had to battle through all of that in order to like find a way for me to be okay and feel okay. And I've discovered that like once I was in a place that I was really happy with, then a lot of that self-talk was, you know, the outside world telling me like what to be, what not to be, and what is okay and what is not okay. And once I, you know, cleared myself of that, I realized, wow, like my life is really good. I've surrounded myself with people who accept me for exactly who I am. And yeah, so that really helped a lot with that. But again, like it's years and years of work that I just, you know, put into like a little sentence. But yeah.
That's an incredible answer.
That's awesome.
I find like at the peak of my addiction, the negative self-talk was just like, is just insane to the point where like I hated myself. Right. So I find, you know, I love asking people the best tools that they have for kind of overcoming that. So thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I had a quick question for you, and kind of growing up and, you know, your father being an alcoholic, was that ever discussed, or how much of it did you see? I know you said your parents separated. Was it ever kind of warned to you about the drinking, or?
Yeah. So I just remember growing up knowing my dad was an alcoholic, and my dad and I are like very similar in a lot of ways, but we're also very different. Like my dad was not a daily drinker. I've maybe seen him actually drunk like less than 7 times in my entire life. But he did the majority of his like binge drinking when he was really young, and just like took many into his like 50s or like 40s, 50s to realize, you know, that he knew he was an alcoholic for a super long time, but it took him a really long time to actually stop. During my parents' divorce, I remember he drank, not a lot, but like I remember nights when I would call him and he wouldn't sound normal. So I think he did a lot of drinking, like while me and the kids, or I call them the kids, my siblings weren't around. But yeah, so I mean, I grew up knowing that he was an alcoholic. I didn't see it often, but yeah, we've always openly discussed it. I've always known what it is. I've always known what it looked like for him. So yeah, I mean, alcoholism, not that the drinking was a part of daily life, but like, you know, going to like functions as kids, he would be like the one not drinking. And that was explained to me like, oh, your dad's an alcoholic. Like, I don't drink. I don't do well with alcohol. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like I just accepted that when I was young, and then figured out much more in depth what that meant later on in life.
Harry, you mentioned, you know, how you like chose recovery at a young age, and people were like, you know, you're not an alcoholic at 21 or so on. Did you find there was a difference between how people would approach you coming out and saying you're an alcoholic, say someone who is in recovery compared to like someone who doesn't really understand substance abuse? Because I know we went to a rehab center and there was a 21-year-old there, and he's a great kid, and like we were all just like super supportive of him, you know, for like making that choice. And like it's really tough to do at that age because, you know, like drinking is so common. But all of us were just super proud of him because like it's amazing to recognize at that age, right? So did you find there was a difference between like how people reacted?
Honestly, one of the first, like I had gotten a lot of like, oh, you're not before, but one of the first ones that really stick out to me in my mind was someone I was in rehab with telling me that I wasn't an alcoholic.
Oh,
or like
really?
making a comment that I wasn't, or like, what did they say? They said something along the lines of like, I think your parents just sent you here because you've had like one too many margaritas on the weekend or something.
Oh, wow.
And like, this is after I had my turned my life into a train wreck. And to hear, you know, that in rehab was like, my brain was trying to use that as an excuse. Like, yeah, he's so right. Like, you're not an alcoholic. Go back out there and drink. Like, you totally got this. But later on, he, did say to me like, wow, after listening to your stories, I relate to you so much. And I totally agree. Like, yeah, you're for sure an alcoholic. And I was like, well, yeah, I know that. Thanks for that though. But so, I mean, I've gotten it from literally all kinds of people. And I don't like, it's weird because I don't know if it's like a male versus female issue, but like that you were in rehab with like a 21-year-old guy, right? And like, for some reason, if men say like, oh, I'm an alcoholic, people think of it as like a very, I mean, what do you think when you think of an alcoholic, right? You think of like an old toothless man living under a bridge who's lost his friends, family, job, like everything. So they have this stigma in their head of like what that looks like. And so when a younger version of that says that's what I am, then they're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you probably have a problem. But like, I've noticed that, as a woman in recovery and, a lot of women that I also speak to also have had people say like, oh, I've drank more than you've spilled, or like, just that kind of talk. So it's a very interesting phenomenon that goes
Really?
on. So
Yeah, it really is. We've had that said to us a couple times with like the women that we've had on, and how it's almost like it's might be harder to admit that you have an alcohol issue as a woman, right?
Yeah. And I don't know why that is. Like, I don't know why people think gender has anything to do with the chemical substance you put in your body. Like an X or a Y isn't going to stop something like a chemical reaction from happening in your body. It just doesn't make, it doesn't make any sense to me because I've lived it and like I understand it. But I get the stigma, and that's one of the reasons I'm so vocal about everything that I've been through, is because I know there's a lot of young women who are going through the abuse cycles and they're getting worse and worse, and society is telling them that, oh, they just get that drunk because they're a woman and it affects them differently, or they're a lightweight, or they have to evolve into this like mommy wine culture thing. And that's just not how you have to live.
I just wanted to touch back on the getting sober at a young age, and I find that surprising though. You'd have someone, I mean, I know everyone's a little bit different, someone say that to you, because for myself, I'm going to be sneaking up to 40 here, and I just look at anyone that's younger than me. Like Mark's 10 years younger than me. I mean, we had someone in rehab that was 21, and I just look back and think, man, I wish I would have gotten right at a young age. I just kept started hanging out with different people. Like once my friends got older and matured and like moved on from the drinking, I never did, and I just found a different group of people, right? And so I just think it's awesome. But I was curious if, like, with your platform, have you had young people reach out to you? I think it'd be a good voice for them.
Yeah, on TikTok more so. Like, I'm just starting out. Like, me and my dad just started this podcast like 2 months ago, and I'm just starting out on Instagram, but I've had a TikTok account since last summer, and I've had a lot of people reach out to me, women specifically, saying like, wow, I relate to this so much, and I didn't even think anything of it until seeing it in this format. And it's so funny because like a lot of what I say is just so normalized into drinking culture that people think alcohol abuse is just what you should do. Like, it's just something that you eventually grow up and do. And like, we shouldn't be doing that. Like, we shouldn't be abusing this drug from, the minute that we turn into preteens, teenagers. And I mean, just the fact that people look at the cycle of alcohol abuse and think like, oh, that's just my weekend, or like, that's just my Tuesday. That's so alarming to me. And I mean, but what do you do? Like, I mean, I've said this before, and like, it's really, not to go like too extreme or anything, but I really feel like we're fed this cycle of propaganda, very similar to what, tobacco was like a very long time ago. And like, doctors are saying it's good for you. Physicians recommend this brand. And look at what's happening. Like, you see like the benefits of red wine, the benefits of potato vodka, the benefits of this and that. Alcohol doesn't benefit your body in any way, shape, or form. Like, it's a very dangerous, carcinogenic, addictive substance. And it's being sold to us and pushed to us as if it's just a cup of coffee on like a Monday morning. And, that's a whole other thing.
That's a good point too. And what's kind of scary I've noticed is how much gambling commercials and stuff are going on now too. It's almost like they're
You
like
notice those recently?
transitioning to like another addictive thing. It's like, okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe young people aren't drinking as much nowadays. And it's like, I mean, I think they are, but you know what I mean? Now they're transitioning to like, let's get them hooked on gambling.
Literally, I have a friend who just went to rehab for like pills and for gambling. And I have, ever since he said that, I have noticed how many ads I get, how many commercials there are for gambling and for gambling websites and for gambling apps, especially like in Ontario where we are now. Like they've just come out with like this whole app system of, that's just very appalling to me. But I totally agree. It's like they're transitioning because I feel like people are kind of waking up about alcohol and they're really understanding like what they're putting in their bodies. And yeah, I guess they're just moving on to the next thing. It's very true.
You would think that something that harms so many people would not be allowed to be advertised.
Yeah. Like cigarettes aren't allowed to be advertised. Like in Canada, it's crazy because you actually have like full on covers over them. Like you literally can't, and maybe Americans don't know this, but in Canada, when you go to a convenience store, like, you know how like in a 7-Eleven, the whole back wall is cigarettes and you see all the brands, everything. In Canada, it's not like that. So there's like literally like a board or like things covering it up. So you literally can't see any cigarettes at all. And the cigarette boxes themselves have huge warnings on them, like with photos, and they're super proactive about that, which is great. Not so that doesn't happen so much in America, but I mean, alcohol is just as bad. Like alcohol, like commonly causes like 7 types of cancer or like cancer within 7 different organs of your body. And no one talks about that. No one knows about that. And, the whole, breast cancer awareness month and everything turns pink. And there's all these pink wines and pink drinks to promote, cancer awareness when you're literally drinking. I think it's like, I'm not sure on the statistic about this. It's something like this. If you have like 1 to 3 drinks a week, your chances of getting cancer are like 3 to 5 times higher for women for like breast cancer. And so like we're promoting this for breast cancer awareness, but we're really drinking something that is giving people breast cancer like on a daily basis. So, but I get it. Like these companies make trillions of billions or like whatever of dollars like promoting this product. And, it's the legal drug that we can have. And people think it's an innocent, it comes in like a little cup, right? Like when people think of drugs, they think of like heroin or something you inject and like it's stigmatized as being dirty. But like when you drink alcohol, it comes in a cute little bottle with like flowers on it or like a very nice little advertisement, and you don't feel like you're doing a drug, but you're doing drugs. Like you are a drug user if you use alcohol, but it's not said in that way, or there's no stigma around that.
Once you got through rehab the second time, where did that take you after that? When did you move to Ontario and maybe meet your hubby?
So I was very mentally unstable after I got sober. Like I became extremely agoraphobic. I had like very intense, crazy paranoia, like OCD kind of stuff. And I literally couldn't function. Like I didn't leave the house for 8 months. Like I was in my room for 8 months. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't get out of bed. I would take a shower like once a week. Like it's gross, but like, it's like literally what happens after you've like, abused your body and your mind like so intensely for so long. And I was just I wasn't really a human being anymore. Like, and it took a really long time to like start moving out of that. So like 1.5 to 2 years after I had got sober, it was really bad for like 1.5 years, and it continued being bad. But I actually got on to Twitch, which is like the video gaming platform where like you live stream video games. And I started live streaming because it was the only thing that I could do. It was from the comfort of my own room. I didn't have to see anyone or leave or do anything. And I started live streaming, and I ended up meeting my husband on there. And we formed like an online relationship, which was again easy for me because I was having panic attacks every 10 minutes. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't drive. I had no hygiene, had like, there was nothing about me that was like functioning. So I could hide and like pretend a lot of this wasn't happening. Like I could be like a normal person, like in the online space, and like no one would know. So we started dating like online, and then he came to visit me, and we decided like, hey, this works. There's chemistry online, there's chemistry in real life. And then he came to visit for a month when I was in Texas, and he started noticing some things about me that weren't quite so normal. And I remember one day he just like looked me straight in the eyes, and he was like, "Do you have OCD?" And I was like, I can't even tell you how happy I am that you asked me that question. And I just like literally like dumped on him everything that was mentally wrong with me. And I literally found the best person in the world, because like some of the stuff that I was doing was like certifiable. Like I should have gone to a mental hospital during this time, but I just refused. I was too scared. I didn't want to do it. And he looked at me and he was like, okay, how do we solve this? Like, how do we move forward? So I was just so incredibly lucky to find someone who was willing to take literally all of my baggage, not only from drinking and the life that I had before, but also now all of these new mental disabilities and dysfunctions that I had because of my drinking. Like, I don't have physical scarring. Like I didn't have, I never got arrested. I didn't have a lot of the bad stuff happen to me. I had a lot of repercussions, but like none in like that kind of way. All my scarring was mental. And so now I had to figure out how to turn back into, a human being again after being so sick for so long. And so we eventually figured out a plan that he was going to come to Texas and live for 6 months. And then I was going to go to Canada and live for 6 months, just so we could have like the requirements for common law. So I could like move here eventually. And yeah, I stayed here for 6 months. We thought about going back to the States, but then we ended up staying in Canada, and I've been here for like 6 years now. So that's how I ended up here.
Amazing.
Important question though. Who was the better gamer back then?
Him. And still always like, it's funny, like this is so off topic, but like, a lot of people play video games. He was born to play video games. Like he is just like, he can pick up any game and like get a high score, and it's just like the most insane thing you've ever seen. He just has like this, that's his magical power in life, is like literally playing video games. So he's doing the perfect thing for his life right now.
Perfect. Tara, how important has being sober been on like working on your mental health? I
wouldn't have mental health if I were not sober, like period. Yeah. Like I had a lot, like, and I didn't, again, like I said, I didn't know this because I didn't understand mental health when I was in like elementary school and middle school, but I had pretty severe OCD like growing up, and it just manifested itself in very like innocent little ways. And I didn't even realize it was happening. Always had anxiety, always had depression, always struggled with like eating disorders and that kind of stuff. And the alcohol only made it a million times worse. So again, like by the time I got sober, my brain was so fucked up from like, because I had done a drug for many, many, many years in a row, and my brain chemistry was all off. My hormone imbalance, like I had a hormone imbalance, like every aspect of my body was completely thrown off. And you can't even begin to make progress for mental health if you're constantly injecting yourself with something that's heightening all of these things and making all of these things 1,000 times worse, like on a daily basis. So I would not be here if I had not gotten sober. And I am like, I'm alcohol free. I haven't relapsed since, the time I started. But I've had a lot of like mental relapses with like my OCD and my, all like my spectrum of mental health things that I've had to deal with since. I've had hard times with that, but it was because I was sober that I was able to like see what was happening and then take immediate action. And if not immediate, like I would tell someone about it, tell my husband about it, and then we move forward together. So for me personally, there's just no mental health without sobriety, like whatsoever.
Absolutely. When you reflect now, do you think you were using kind of to like try to help yourself with your mental health? But in retrospect, it hurts it.
So I feel like looking back, I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah, because all of that self-hatred, all of that negative talk, all of that was all mental health. Because like if you're chemically balanced in your brain, you're not having thoughts like that. You're not having, suicidal ideation, and you're not thinking like all of these terrible, horrible things about yourself that aren't real. You don't have these cycling things like if like in a normal, healthy brain that doesn't happen. So when I drank alcohol, one, I have genetic alcohol, what I believe to be genetic alcoholism. Like it runs in both sides of my family. A lot of people have it in my family. So I was just kind of fucked from the go, because like I could not have escaped it either way, but it definitely was a huge crutch for me and feeling like I was worthy and like I was something, because when I was drinking alcohol, it felt like people weren't laughing at me anymore. And I was bullied like you would not believe in school. And like, honestly, it's funny. I still have a lot of self-doubt and stuff that I deal with because of like how intensely I was bullied when I was growing up. And I still deal with that today. But I wouldn't have what I have now if it, weren't for being sober.
If and when you guys decide to have children, is the genetic component part of the conversation you'll have one day? I'm not going to ask like what age or anything like that, but are you going to share that part of it?
This is a great question, because honestly, I have this conversation with my husband all the time. Like, and he has alcoholism in his family as well. So I flat out tell him, I'm like, I'm really scared to have kids, because not that I don't want them to have to go through that. I mean, like I made it through, and a lot of people do make it through, but a lot of people don't. And that's, something that we don't struggle with, but like we definitely go back and forth on, because it is genetic for me. And he's like the complete opposite of an alcoholic. Like he takes one sip of alcohol and he's like, no, it's too much for me. Like I can't, like I'm buzzed, like I'm done. And so it's so opposite for him. And honestly, we haven't come to a conclusion. Like, I don't know. Like, obviously, I'm not even sure I want to have kids to begin with, but I'm back and forth on that a lot. But if we were to have kids, that's a like number one concern for me, because it does happen on both sides of our family, and it's very prevalent in my family. And I don't know how to prepare for that. Like how, and even like growing up with alcohol in the house, like Phil, my husband's name is Phil drinks on occasion, very rarely, but he does drink on occasion. There's no alcohol in the house ever. That's like a rule that we have. Like there's no point in having alcohol here. He doesn't care about alcohol anyway. So, how do we talk to our kids about alcoholism and alcohol? Like how open do I be about like everything that's happened to me? When is the right time to dump that on them, and to set that expectation in their mind that, oh, there might be something wrong with me, and them not wanting something to be wrong with them. So will that make them rebel even more, or will that make them more open? So it's just like we literally have this conversation all the time, because I don't know what to do about it. I should probably talk to a professional who could give me like some sort of concrete answer, but it's a very scary thing for me that I think about a lot, because the reality is, being that it runs in both sides of our family, there's absolutely a chance that our kids could be born with this too. And if not, you don't have to be born with it. You can also drink your way into it. Maybe they're more susceptible to that. So I don't know. It's really a good question. And I don't have any sort of concrete answer for that because it's really confusing.
No, I think that's well said. And I didn't mean to pry too much into like
No,
personal
not at all.
decisions
I'm such an open book about literally everything. Like,
okay.
So totally good.
Cool.
Tara, so you moved to Toronto or Ontario.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with your podcast and kind of owning your sobriety on Instagram?
So I told you, like, I wrote that memoir years and years ago, haven't done anything with it. And I've always wanted to publish that thing, but I've had it professionally edited, and I've always wanted to move forward in that way with my sobriety. And I thought that I would have done it a lot sooner, but writing a book is really hard. And I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I refuse to put it out into the world until it's like exactly what I want. And once I've made it into exactly what I want, then I decide this is not at all what I want. So I've had a lot of phases of like completely changing the structure and, so that's a whole mess. So that's what I originally started with. I started streaming on Twitch, and I was very open about my recovery. And I actually started a YouTube channel about sobriety in particular. And I put out one video, and I was like 24 at the time. It was years ago. I was only like 3 years sober, or maybe I was 2 years sober. I don't remember. But I was like, I'm Tara. I'm an alcoholic. I'm 24 years old. I got sober when I was 21, and told my story basically. And every comment on there was someone called me a charlatan. Like, they're like, oh, you're looking for attention. Someone said you shouldn't share your story because it's offensive to other alcoholics and it's dangerous to share your story. Like, I literally screenshotted these comments so I could use them like one day as like fuel for like what I wanted to do. But at the time, my mental health was like not well enough to deal with it. So I deleted the channel and like have been very closed off about my alcoholism ever since. And it was only like kind of in recent years where like I decided that I really wanted to dive back into it again. And I have been begging my dad for like a year, like months. My dad is very anti-internet. This is the furthest he's ever gone on the internet. He like, I had to physically put an iPhone in his hand and be like, this is yours now. You have to join the world. So I finally convinced him after so long to do a podcast with me. And he didn't think anyone would listen to it. He thought like, oh, whatever, this is like a bad idea. Not a bad idea, but he's like, this isn't ever going to go anywhere, but sure, I'll do it with you. Like, you won't stop asking me. So to shut you up, I'm going to say yes. So we started it about 2 months ago, and it's done so well recently that my dad has been like, this could actually be a thing. This could actually go somewhere. And I was like, yeah, Dad, like, of course. And like, I've said this before, my dad's my best friend, and like everything that man says is just like pure wisdom. And like, maybe it's just me because like that's my dad, but like I grew up talking to him about alcoholism. He is the person I go to. And every time I'm feeling like off about something, he always has the perfect thing to say to me. And like, not just for me, he's like that for everyone in his life. Like everyone in my family calls my dad for advice. He's just that charismatic, caring person. And I just wanted so badly to share that with the world because I feel like I'm hoarding this invaluable resource that is him. And I just so badly wanted to be able to share that with the world because I am sober. A big part of it is because I had someone as understanding as him growing up. And yeah, I just thought it was so important to keep talking about alcoholism. And I'm so much better mentally than I ever have been in my life. So I'm able to deal with, the hateful, mean, bullying kind of comments and whatever. So I'm in a better place. I'm feeling really good. Me and my dad have a mission. And yeah, so that's kind of that.
Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna pump her up a bit. I think you guys have just a great great chemistry, obviously son and daughter, but a great dynamic, and different generations you can kind of bring to the table, and experiences, and I don't know, I've really enjoyed what I've listened to so far. So
thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, we will. You
guys get into some good topics that we do one where we do shooting the sober shit, and but we always get off track, and like you guys are very good at
see, that's the thing, where we want to do more of that kind of thing, but like I'm afraid that it will just like we won't even end up talking about sobriety at the end of it. It'll just go into something else. So we've always tried to be like really structured with like, this is what we're going to talk about. And like, that's exactly what we talk about. But I know I've watched the SSS, I'll call it. I've really enjoyed those. So that's something that I definitely want to try out. I think it's really a cool dynamic.
Well, you and your dad are welcome to join us on a shooting the sober shit anytime.
That would be so fun. I would really like that.
That'd be great. Dave, do we have any more questions for Tara?
I had some on my laptop over there, but I think I got out the ones I really wanted to ask, and but yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on, and that would be super cool to have you guys on, and yeah, please do.
Yeah, that would be so, like, I'm actually super down. So that would be really fun to just send me some info, and then we can line that up if you want.
Sounds awesome. Great. Tara, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story. I think it's amazing that you share your story, and I think it's very helpful for so many people. So thank you very much. And guys, if you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please reach out and ask for help. Thanks for listening.